That's what it's all about. It's about partnering, networking, associating, and again, not trying to do it all on your own. I was going through separation and divorce and all these things that I did not want to go through. Like, what can I get from these? I'm going through them. I might as well get something from these things that would actually help propel me to the other side. But you have to stay curious about what else you can do, because there's a whole lot of us that's out here living on our past victories, and living that way causes present failures.
I'm Coach Des, mindset motivator and lifestyle entrepreneur. My mission is to help you crush your self-limiting beliefs and embrace being unapologetically you. The Born Unbreakable podcast brings you inspirational stories from all over the world that will empower you to unlock your unbreakable spirit. I'd love to partner with you on your next breakthrough. Go to bornunbreakable.com to schedule a free transformational call. Action begins today. Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. I've been looking forward to this interview ever since I learned about Joel Green, because his story, his purpose in the world really aligns with the platform of Born Unbreakable. You know, before we hit record, I was talking to my guest Joel about the fact that people relate to struggle and people relate to adversity, because it's something that at some point in our life we all have in common. So I'm really excited for Joel to share his story. But let me just say a couple things about him. And this is hard because there's so many things to say. So I'm just going to do a couple of the highlight reels. But Joel is the CEO of Pro Level Training, the national director of Nike Sports Camps, and a former pro basketball player, and a renowned motivational speaker. I'm also very excited because there is a book that is coming our way called Filtering: The Way to Extract Strength from Struggle. And I just think that's so poignant for where we are in the world right now. You know, there's a lot of struggle, I think, that's happening collectively, in ways that I actually think we've regressed. You know, when we think about things like racism and like the divisiveness in politics, it's very challenging, I think, on that level. But on top of that, I think there are personal struggles that people are going through right now. You know, we are in some economically challenging times, and people, you know, are thinking about the holidays that are coming up, and trying to figure out the budget that they have for gifts and coming together as family and things of that nature. So, you know, despite that, I do also want to just point out that there is a lot of hope. And I think when we put ourselves in a position to think about our contribution and our gratitude, we can shift our mindset from those struggles and adversities to what we can do to be uplifting, encouraging, and inspiring to others. So, Joel, thank you so much for coming on the show and being willing to share your story.
Well, Dennis, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I know that it's exciting to hear about your background. You know, people are hearing pro basketball, you know, Nike, and all of these things that make you a person of inspiration. But I understand that a lot had to happen before you got here. So I'd love to hear your personal story of your background, that kind of was able to lead you to where you are today.
Well, a lot definitely has happened to get me where I am, but it all contributed to getting me here. You know, it didn't just this thing about me, and for those that knows me, they know I don't take any occurrence or anything, or even people in my circle coming in, even if it's temporarily. I don't take any of that for granted. You know, I'm very aware of things, especially nowadays, to where if anything happens, I'm reading into it. I'm looking into it. Obviously not minor things. You know, I'm not an overthinker. I used to be, you know, but I had to really break free of that. But I really am aware that things don't just happen for nothing. So, you know, even dating back to my childhood, you know, growing up in an abandoned house in North Philadelphia, that right there, it taught me humility early on, you know, wearing other people's clothes, you know, that were donated to our house and stuff like that. As a child, I didn't really realize the hardship of it because it was just my childhood. That's what I was born into. I lived in an abandoned house for the first 8 years of my life. So, we had graffiti on our walls, and we added to the quote unquote artwork. Me and my brothers would have drawing contests on our walls, and we didn't get in trouble for it because there was already graffiti on some of our walls. And it was just that was life. I was 10 feet away from a shooting when I was 6 years old, and afraid I was going to get shot, like the kid who I saw get shot, and there was nobody else there outside of the shooters and the kid. So I saw things early in life that I wish nobody sees, to be honest with you. But each of those things, fortunately, God helped me escape those things. And I was able to see life, and the cyclic patterns of life early, and just see, like, okay, bad things happen, but you can turn it into good. Okay, another bad thing happened, we can draw something from it and actually have it help you to produce something good and greater than that bad thing. And that's just what I began doing. Not that it always goes that way, bad thing, good, bad, no, but for me, I now don't mind leaning into those difficult times. I lost tragically lost one of my older brothers when I was a teenager. Going through things like that, I had to begin to find a way to still see the light of life, like just not just see the darkness of life. And I just began to say, okay, you know what? The only way I feel like I can do it is by leaning into these dark moments that I've been trying to ignore and run from, because I've been wanting to feel like they haven't happened because they hurt. The moment I begin like facing them and getting something from them, the more success I started gaining. So literally, as you just said with the name of my book, I began filtering it and literally extracting something from those dark moments. And it's been taking me to some well lit places. I'll say that. And that's the beauty about things now, that it's the perspective. And now I don't see all these dark things as bad stuff. Obviously they're difficult times, they're unideal. I would prefer for many to not happen, but when they happen, they happen. What do I do now at that point? I prefer to get something from them as opposed to just, regret them or complain or cry about them. They happen, I might as well get something from it.
Yeah. Yeah. You learn from those moments of hardship. And I think that everybody can relate to that, you know.
Mhm.
You don't know when a curveball is
Right.
coming, and especially when you lose someone,
Right.
right? Like, most of the time when we think about that, we hope that people stick around until when they're old, and
Mhm.
when we get surprised, that's oftentimes a wake up call
Absolutely.
when
Definitely.
something like that does happen. I am really curious, I love Philly. Shout out to Philly. And then you're in
Absolutely.
Jersey right now, so shout
Right.
out to Jersey. Uh,
Mhm.
Man, I could really use a Philly cheesesteak right now.
Look, you and me both. You and me both. I haven't had one in a little bit, so you make me want to go pick one up.
Yeah, you could train, and that could be the thing that you earn, right? That
Exactly.
could be like
Look,
years
absolutely.
meal or something. But yeah, like I love the movie Creed. When I
Hmm.
would see Michael B. Jordan
Yeah.
training in that movie, and then he would go down and eat those Philly cheese. I was like, yeah,
Right. Right. Exactly. I,
that's you earn that.
you have exactly. I tell people all the time. For myself, I outwork my diet. I don't always eat the healthiest, but I work harder than the bad food that I eat. So if I do eat a cheesesteak, I'll be up at 5 the next morning working out.
Yeah, see,
Um,
you know the system.
I know. I know. Yeah, I know the trick.
Being an
Exactly.
athlete like you kind of know what it is, and you know exactly what your body's telling you to be like.
Exactly.
This you reach your limit. Now you need to fall back.
Right. Right. Exactly.
um, but basketball, Joel.
Mhm.
How did basketball come into your life, and what role has it played?
Basketball. I loved ball since I was 3. Literally. Saw Teen Wolf back in the day in the late '80s, and I saw this werewolf playing basketball, and I just thought it was so cool as a 3-year old. And I had my own little Nerf ball. I literally remember again at the age of 3 watching this movie, putting the VHS in, the VCR, and just press and play. Sitting there, my legs crossed, just watching the movie. And I just wanted to do it. I wanted to do exactly what I saw on the TV. And, my brother began to take me, one of my older brothers took me to the basketball court, and just let me watch. He would be out there playing. I would be at the playground next to it, but I would just be watching all the other kids playing at the playground, and I walk over to the side of the basketball court. I'm just watching these big kids play. These 13-year-olds, and it was just cool. I just always wanted to do it. Before I could even reach the hoop on a 10-foot regulation hoop, and I never looked back. I'll be honest with you. Once I started playing organized ball at about 8 or 9. Won my first championship, my first season, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And I don't think I scored a basket the whole season. Um, and it was super intimidating for me. I remember that. I was out there, I was 9 years old actually, and I was out there with 12 and 13-year-olds.
Mhm.
And so intimidating, but I learned so much from those older kids. I kept playing with older kids. And by the time I had to play with my own age group, I dominated, and I just kept doing that. I just kept putting myself around better people, and just time and time when I was 15, I put myself around college kids. Like it just kept working for me. So it took me far. It took me to Division 1 as a basketball player. I won titles, national championships in college, and um, made it to professional. That was my dream.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. I think, and I love the part where, when we're young, we all have this dream. And we really, and I love thinking back to the time when we're kids because we don't let anything stop us.
No,
I think
right,
it's as we get older, then you
mhm,
start to create limitations because
exactly.
of different experiences that you have that go, oh, yeah, maybe I'm not good enough for this. There's
Hmm.
all these better players than me. Am I
Exactly.
really going to have longevity? What if I get injured? And it's all the what ifs.
Yeah. It's amazing how knowledge can lead to fear. Like you start learning more stuff and education, statistics and past happenings with other people, and that starts creeping into you. Okay, well, that's probably going to happen to me. And it's like, nope, I know that. Well, I had to ignore a whole lot of those things, even just making out of my neighborhood, just basketball aside, like the statistics will say, I'm not supposed to make it out. Um, but yeah, that comes along with the education. Like you get older, your teachers start telling you not able to do certain things, and so much you have to ignore. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. What for you, in your basketball career has been one of the most, formidable moments that you can remember that's helped you in terms of where you are in business now?
Man, it's funny. I would say, well, definitely going into my rookie season, which was over in Ireland. So I was undrafted, by the NBA. So I went to Europe, and I saw how much I really had to market myself. It was a true business, and I couldn't rely on my agent to do all the work. He didn't know me. I just signed to him. So, for anyone that has an agent, they don't truly know you, until you work with them for a good while. They
Yeah.
don't know your likes and dislikes. You can put it on paper all you want until they have true conversation with you and see some ups and downs. They don't know who you are. So I had to realize, okay, you hired them, but you still have to market yourself, and you have to still do your own work and even bring things to the table and not fully rely on that partner in this exchange or this relationship. And that's what I do now in business too, as far as just marketing myself, marketing my brand, marketing our camps, our Nike events, and things like that. Yeah, I can't just rely on other people to do so much of the work. Like, no, I have to get the work too. If I want an end result to occur, I need to do all that I can to contribute and ensure that it comes about, because, it's not everybody else's job to do something that you want to have come about. So that was a huge lesson for me. And I would say another thing I picked up on was actually post professional career. You may see in the background the Cheeses box, right? So that there's a whole story behind that. But I was the face of Cheeses for a little bit,
I love
and
cheese.
you love. Oh, all
I
right,
was
there we go.
eating some Cheez-Its yesterday. I'm not even
There
going
we
to lie
go.
about it. I was. It might have been lunch, if I'm being
That's
really
funny. Look, if you don't have them in a little bit, they hit the spot, the perfect, perfect crunchy snack. I sound like a commercial right now. But yeah, I mean, it was, just working along with them and the Kellogg's family. It taught me networking. I'll be honest with you. I still play the celebrity games with them every year, and I'm around Shaq. I'm around all these people every single year, and just we network. It's such a great environment, and again, I carry that into business to where I'm like, okay, that's what it's all about. It's about partnering, networking, associating, and again, not trying to do it all on your own. Bringing somebody in that can actually help you to sit down for part of the process so that you can actually have the proper energy when it's your time to work. And that's one thing I really learned is like, okay, sit down every once in a while. And sometimes it may take you hiring somebody, bringing on an intern, or actually just partnering with somebody else that's better than you and what you're trying to have come about. And that's one thing I've learned, even just working with them and so many others I've had to network with.
Yeah. It makes me think about one of the things I think is challenging sometimes in business and life and in branding, because if anybody that's listening right now, you are a brand. Whether
Absolutely.
you acknowledge that or not, or because you are a part of a company or you have your own company, we all carry ourselves as a brand, by the way that we speak, we engage, how people talk about us. Like if somebody thinks about you, what are the first three words they think about? That's your brand. If you have
Sure.
humility, or if you have compassion, or if you have humor, I mean, that's your reputation precedes you. And so I think you make a really good point about, having to do the work, and it's not just everyone else, doing things for you, but it
Hmm.
just makes me think about, because something you said struck me, it makes me think about ego
Hmm.
and how important it is to have your ego in check, because
Absolutely.
you have to ask for help. There are
Yep.
experts that are going to need to sit down with you and show you how to do something better than you're capable of. But I do think sometimes in business, it's something that can get in the way,
For
because
sure.
you want to be, you think you could
Hmm.
do it by yourself, you're a smart person, but we don't do things alone. At least I don't
Exactly.
think most successful people do things alone. So,
That's one thing I've learned, when it comes to the Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world, all these the Amazons of these major companies, none of them are doing it alone. They're either buying out another company that will help contribute to what they're doing, or they're partnering with another company to contribute to what their overall goal is. And that's what it's all about. You have to connect with other people, and just become one beast. I'll be honest. I mean, that's just really what it's about, and that's what I'm looking to do in business as far as our expansions around the country, around the world.
mhm,
I want for us to be our own beast, be in our own lane of just okay, we're our own competition. I tell our team that look, we cannot focus on what everybody else is doing. They don't matter. They don't. They don't matter. We're the only ones that matters when it comes to our business, and our business is about service. When it comes, and that's just really what it is. Now, when I say we're the only ones that matter, obviously our customers are the most important people in the equation. But when it comes to looking business to business, I don't see that anybody else's competition,
yeah.
and that's a really important focus that I have to give to my team all the time. Like, okay, they'll tell me what's going on in the area, what everybody else is doing. I'm like, I don't care. Okay, what are we doing to be our best? That's period.
Yeah.
And that's my focus.
I love that. And how did this national director of Nike sports camps come around?
Hustle, a whole lot of hard work, a
I
whole
thought
lot
about
of hard work,
that, I soaked that in. I'm like, that's a really big deal.
a whole lot of hard work. We had one camp, so we connected with Nike sports camps in 2011, 2011, 2012. No longer after I stepped away from playing ball, and um, had one camp in New Jersey, and I just moved to New Jersey at that time from Philadelphia, and had one camp, and began doing some research for them that they didn't ask me to do. I began finding out some open markets around the country, and there were a ton. And got allowance to make those moves under, my company, Pro Level Training. We connected. Started having pro level training Nike events and camps in these different areas, and we're able to now we're expanding into close to 20 states. So we're in about 18 states across the country and close to 40 cities. And it just and we're even in talks with doing some things over in Europe. So we're in Canada as well. So again, I'm just kind of going off the top of my head right now to where it took a lot of work. The moment we begin to expand, it just kind of gave me the label of, okay, you're a national director because you're not regional or local anymore. And took a trip over to the headquarters at in Nike over in Oregon, and um, things really began to take off after that point. It just was a whole nother animal. I love it though. I love it. I get to work with the youth, show them what I learned later on in life. I get to show them early. It's nothing like giving that head start to the kids. So I love what I do with this position.
It's amazing. So I have to ask because Nike is a big brand,
Mhm.
and I think that anybody that thinks of Nike thinks of athletics, thinks of the caliber of training. All like you see the look at the Olympics, you see
Mhm.
people wearing Nike because that's like
Absolutely.
it's such a pinnacle of athletic success. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, what is it? Well, first of all, like how do kids get recruited or have the opportunity to be in a camp, and what happens, like what is the process once you're in it? What do you do, and how long are you in it, in a training camp?
Well, the beauty of what I do is I'm on the developmental side. I don't even want to be a part. I'm not going to say I don't want to be a part of the elite side. I've worked with a ton of elite athletes, but I love to be a part of the developmental camps. That's where the bulk of people are. As far as elite, it's a handful. Developmental, those are the ones that's aspiring to become elite, which is more than not. So uh, our camps are not by invite. Our camps are open to the public as far as the kids that wants to be a part of it. Up to about 18 years old. So that's what I love. I'm impacting these kids that are out here dreaming. You know what I mean? The ones that doesn't have it yet, but they want it. They want it so bad, and they see the elites and they want to be at that level. I'm like, I got you. Let's get in the gym with me, and let's get to work. And once they're at the camp, we work them. Like we work them, and that's the whole idea. Again, my company is pro level training. If you think about the name, that's exactly what we're delivering to them. We're giving them a glimpse into what it looks like to be a pro. So the things that I had to honestly suffer through and go through as a pro athlete during my off seasons and preseason conditioning and all those things, out in the heat, on the track, and or early morning, like we're taking them through those things.
Yeah.
And it hurts, it's tiring, it's fatiguing, but man, by the end of that week, they're like, man, I did it. They love it. And that's what I tell them. By that Wednesday, midweek, you're going to be questioning whether you want to continue sometimes. But I dare you say, if you get beyond that Wednesday, you'll begin to see the better side of yourself that you came to camp for. So every kid, I feel like I've seen it. I work with thousands of kids,
Wow.
and the feedback that I get from these kids, from the parents, man, obviously the kids, we get on-site feedback all the time. Hey, coach, man, that was a great drill yesterday, or I really love that. We can do it again. I'm like, no, we're gonna do something else today. But the parents, they love it. We put them in the classroom to build their IQ. That's a huge component for me, building the mental component for the kids. Basketball, it's a sneaky way for me to get into their heads. I'll be honest with you. I'm a psychology guy. That's my degree is in psychology.
Yeah.
I read on psych every single day. So I'm always trying to make sure these kids can deal with things like anxiety, things I know they go through on a daily basis, bullying, how to handle it. We have discussions on how to handle bullying and how we can do it as a group, together. Like that's one thing I was talking to some kids about. Like, look, bullying should not be handled alone. You know what I mean? So it's just we go over so much at camp to prepare kids for life. I tell these kids, look, these teammates gonna be called coworkers one day. Your coach is gonna be called bosses. These refs out here are gonna be called officers in society. So you got to learn how to deal with people now, so that once you're, beyond the sport, you can still operate.
Yeah. How often do you see the same kids through their growth? Like, do you see a kid as an adolescent and they continue to work with you through their teenage years?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had so many full circle moments. A lot of my campers that may have been in camp since they were 12, right? So even younger than that, let's say 10 to 15 until they begin to age out. Like, again, our camps go up to 18, but you'll see a lot of kids, especially if they, really improved. Around 15, they may begin to step away from our camp because now they're on the AAU circuit, traveling more, things like that. I've had so many kids contact me asking if they can work with us, once they get to college, So a few of my interns right now are former campers. So it's a lot of full circle moments and funnels that happen, which is so fulfilling for me because I'm like, man, I've kind of helped raise this kid in the sport and, to help develop their love in the sport since they were 10 years old. Now they're sophomores and juniors in colleges. And, it's working along with me, seeing the other side of this thing.
Mhm.
And so it's so many of the kids that I've seen literally for years, for over a decade. I've helped kids get to college, and some are playing pro right now, NBA, Europe, and it's no greater feeling to see them like living out the dream that we talked about when they were 11.
Yeah.
They cried about when I pushed them too hard when work out. Like and all of a sudden they stuck through it, and they're there now.
Yeah.
There's no the gratification is nuts.
Yeah. It's hard to describe, I'm sure.
It
And
really is. It really is.
especially the magnitude of it. I think because of the
Mm,
number of people that you touch, you get to relive that story
mm,
multiple times, and I think
yeah.
that's what's so amazing about what you do and the arena in which you do it and helping youth, because I do believe that's where it starts. I do
Mhm,
believe that that inspiration, the mindset, a lot of the things that we were talking about where you kind of break down mentally is
mhm,
built or torn down by how the kind of support and guidance that you have,
sure.
growing up. But before I get to, because I do want to ask you about your book and what inspired that, I want to ask you what else are you working on right now? So we talked about the sports camps. What
Mm.
else is on Joel Green's plate of exciting projects at the moment?
Well, one has something to do with the book, but I'll mention that, as we talk about that later. But expansion of the company it's a priority at this point.
Mhm.
Um, to where we just really, I'm big on influence, and I know that our product is so great in my opinion. All humility, I'm saying that with, but I've seen what it's done for so many kids. So I'm just trying to have our directors around the country to expand what they do, so that they can get more business, so that they can actually generate more revenue and expand their influence. And so that's a major one for me to have us get to the point to where we've not outgrown the states, but to where we're being demanded upon abroad. And that's a huge goal of mine. And starting a corporation, which would likely be a nonprofit pretty soon. I already have the rights to everything called Urban Success, and which spells us. And so it's to help minorities to just the youth to just develop CEO mindsets and to teach them about the stock market, things that I didn't learn about until I was now years old. I mean, like, literally things that I just began learning 5 or 6 years ago. I love the market, the stock market. And I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me about this till I was 30 something? So I want to give these things to the kids. I feel like I'm an urban success. So that's why I named it that. And again, with it being us, I just really want to help the minorities, because it's where I come from. You don't even hear of these different, you don't hear about investing. You don't hear about so many things that can help people get to the point of what they admire all the time. I feel
Mhm.
like growing up, I was always admiring somebody, but was never admired. And I was always admiring somebody every time we drove out of the neighborhood. I'm like, why are we not admiring people within our own neighborhood? What's going on? And so that's what I want to help develop within the youth. I want to tap into their mindset and just let them know that they can do the things that they see on TV, see on social, stuff like that. Because a lot of them do not think they can, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean it's so true. And everything everyone's dreams today is driven off of what they see on social media. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? So, and
Mhm.
it's there's nothing wrong, I think, with there's always going to be something inspiring that's out there in the world, like you said
Mhm.
before. For some of us, that was just the TV, and
Right, right, exactly, exactly.
maybe even black and white TV if for kid. But now it's everywhere. Now
Mhm.
there's so many apps that you can scroll through, whether it's Instagram or something else that you can see things from. But I think you're right that what actually matters is where you can take action in your
Mhm.
own backyard,
Yep,
what's right in front of you. And I
yeah,
think that's what makes it more real,
yeah.
is within your community, something that is
Mhm.
within your grasp.
Big
Um,
time.
and so I want to ask you what inspired you to write your book, and what is it all about? What do you want people to know about it?
Well, as far as again, my book with it being called filtering, it's a method that I came up for myself when I was just going through a whole lot of life, some difficult times about 8 years ago. And again, I'm a speaker, so I was speaking about filtering from the stage for years, and I would hear people say, "Man, that's okay. That's I like how that sounds." And do you have a book or no? I have. Sorry, I don't have a book. And I would say that year after year, and but I really was big on practicing this tool that I developed for myself as far as a way to not just go through things. And obviously, I know it's cliche to say don't go through, but grow through. But I really wanted to find a way, and I mean I was so intentional about finding a way to take things from my difficult moments that can actually help me. Because so many of us, when we go through hurtful, painful things, we want to brush those things under the carpet, put those things away, and not look back at them because they hurt. So I had to start looking at those hurtful things. I kind of it was daring. I'll be honest with you. Looking at the death of my brother and looking at just different moments. I was going through separation and divorce and all these things that I did not want to go through. Like, what can I get from these? I'm going through them. I might as well get something from these things that would actually help propel me to the other side. And the moment I begin to filter, these moments and get into this emotional brainstorming phase, I begin to see things from 5 or 6 different vantage points. I became my own therapist, I'll be honest, and just really having a more objective view point of life and became less emotional amidst a problem. And that was the key for me. The moment I removed my emotional state from my problems, I felt clearer. And that was the trick for me. And that's what I began to try to help so many other people with is like, okay, when you're going through something, don't say, why am I going through this? You can ask the same question, say, well, why am I going through this? And really try to assess it. But that emotion will cloud your judgment at that point. And by filtering and breaking everything down and making it more manageable for myself and not so grandiose where it used to overwhelm me, the breakdown process helped so much. And I said I had to write about this. And I just said, okay, I have to give people my story as well. So I talk about, growing up in an abandoned home and how we dealt with things, how I had to overcome things and still succeed despite, and how I was still expected to still be on the same level of those that had resources, but me still being without resources, and just how to persevere and overcome different things in life and develop foresight and not have to wait on hindsight to reveal all the answers. And the whole filtering process has been helping a whole lot of people. And it's so great to get the feedback that I've been getting back from readers of the book. It's been amazing. It just feels good to have it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it was called upon, like you
Yeah.
said, and
Hmm.
I think that's how you know when you need to fulfill a calling is when it's
Yeah.
being asked of you before it's even, born. But
Exactly.
I'm sitting here thinking about what you said in filtering, because I think when things are hard, we tend not to want to lean into the hard, you know.
Hmm.
So you mentioned like losing someone. I think that's sometimes it's easier for us to just try quickly to move on,
Hmm.
but when we haven't processed that, then it lingers later. And I think the same thing. I've been through divorce myself, and
Mhm.
again, it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, let me just hurry up and try to get through the hard part. But then,
Exactly.
but the beauty is in the growth is in the pain. And I know
Mhm.
that people are listening and they're like, what? What are you talking about?
Sure.
But
Mhm.
I think of the process of vulnerability, and how much you actually grow in that. Like
Mhm.
in going through a second divorce for me,
Wow.
and trying to even understand, like, okay, how did this happen? What are we learning? My he's my friend. It's
Mhm.
funny too, like, oh, my ex. It just has
Yeah,
a
yeah.
connotation, but we're friends today, and he would say to me, I did an autopsy. I did an autopsy of things in a
Mhm.
relationship, and these are the things that I've learned, and these are the things of how I've grown, and these are the things that I own
Yeah.
to of what mistakes I made, what I wish I did differently, and I think that that's healthy.
Mhm.
Instead of walking away from something and going, oh my gosh, okay, like that was a problem, hurry up, just get past it, get over it. It's like, go through it,
Exactly.
through the learning, and it does kind of suck, and there is pain.
Right.
You will
Right.
cry, and you might scream, and you might, it's like kind of ugly,
Yeah.
but at the same time, through that, who you become, which is the better version of you on the other side, is stronger, more resilient, more self-aware, and like you
Mhm.
said, you see things from different vantage points and not just a narrow mind.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and that's those vantage points. It opens you up again. It opens your mind. It opens your heart. You're more welcoming to the lessons that may have been meant to be taught. So often when we're closed minded, we miss out on so much of the fruits. The roses that we can stop and smell, and we negate the fact. I was just telling someone the other day that how much the bad stuff can do for us, right? Like, I say this often now, but I really believe it. Like, we weren't meant to fix all the bad stuff. Like, the bad stuff was put here to improve us. It wasn't, put here to make us mad. No, the bad stuff has been put here to make us better, to refine us, to improve us, as opposed to us saying, oh, that's bad, that's bad. Let's actually fix that and turn that good. No, let's actually utilize that bad thing to make us better. And the moment I started carrying that perspective, I see everything differently. I'm serious with you. Things that literally my inner circle of people will complain about. I sit there so quiet. I just take it all in. I'm the quietest one, and I just let them complain. When they're done, I'm like, you guys are looking at it the wrong way. You got it, but you're missing this part. You're missing that aspect of it. We can actually use that right there. Y'all think that's the enemy in the situation? We can use them. We can use that, and it's a beautiful thing when you're able to have four minds within yourself. It sounds crazy, but I think you know what I'm talking about as far as perspectives. And you're just really able to assess things differently. It's like you're a detective at a crime scene, just seeing things from multiple vantage points.
Well, and you're talking to a true crime junkie.
Oh man, okay, there you go.
Detective. Every time I watch, I'm like, oh yeah, you'll see. Check,
Right, right, right.
check. Yeah, you didn't check there yet. It's okay. It's coming. It's
And,
coming.
and, and that's the foresight that I was talking about. Developing that foresight. And
Yeah.
that's again the whole filtering process. That's what it helped me begin to do. I can step into a room and assess it like that. I can step into a situation and assess it decently, because in some facet I've been there before.
Mhm.
I'm at an age now to where I've been through enough cycles and patterns of life to where I can say, okay, actually I've been there before. I just gotta say, okay, what did I do before? How did I mess up before? Okay, don't do that exact same thing again. Let me
This
make an
is
adjustment. Yeah, I mean, it's like I think we forget where we've been,
yes,
right? It may have had a different face, but it was the same exact principles that we can apply.
right.
And if we're aware of that, it helps us with the next situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I want to mention, because one of the things that I was impressed with too was your TED Talk.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What was it like? So how did that come about? Was it something that you were asked to do? Was it something that you were interested in doing? Tell me more about that.
So that it was so organic the way it came about. Just before the pandemic, before the shutdown of March of what was that 2020? 2020 may have been January or February. I think it was the beginning of February. I met with someone who knew I was a speaker already. We were looking to work together just for other business. And he mentioned that he said, you know what, I'm putting on an event. He said, you're familiar with the TED platform? I said, absolutely. And I'm sitting down with him and I'm mentioning something to him. He said, look, there's some people that needs to hear that. And that's like, what are you talking about? What are you getting at? And he said, man, it would be great if you're interested, if you would want to, give a TED talk. He said, obviously, you'll still have to, kind of send me some clips or, something like that of you speaking. I said, I'll do it now. I stood up and actually, started running some things off to him right there. This was on the spot. This was on the fly. We already had an hour-long meeting, and it was just me and him. And I was at his house. His kids are running through and everything like that. And he closed the door. He said, all right, go ahead. So I just started telling him things that I would speak on, and I started speaking on different topics. And he said, all right. He said, let's do it. He said, right, here's where it's going to be, this and that. It's going to be on this date. And so TED, all of a sudden I was going to be a TED Talk speaker. Then I started hearing all this stuff going on in China and Italy, and I'm like, what's going on? And next thing I know, uh, it was canceled. It was like, okay, it's going to be no more TED Talk. And I'm like, oh man, I was hyped. I was telling people. Normally, I don't tell anybody about anything. I'm such a person of they'll see it when they see it. But I was excited for it. I watched TED Talks for years, and I'm always inspired by them. And I looked them up, and after the world converted and went virtual, after a month or two, and everybody had a virtual platform, they then contacted me and said, "Hey, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it virtual. And it's going to be in February." I said, you know what? That's perfect. So I actually changed what I was going to talk about because they told me to be in February. And it was a lot of situations going on. George Floyd just recently happened before that. Breonna Taylor happened. There was so many horrible things that was happening on the black side, the white side. I felt like the world, our country was going against each other and breaking apart at the same time. I felt like we went right back to the 60s, for goodness sake. And so I asked them, I said, you guys mind if I speak on equality? And they said, this is the perfect platform to do it. That's what I did. I went ahead and called it 3 Essentials to Equality and spoke on that and just gave 3 steps that can be employed, by everybody, not one race, not black people, not white people, not anyone else. It's just, here's what we can all do to make things a step better, 1% better, 2% better. Like nobody has the fix, but there are things that can be done to make this like 1 to 5% better. And that's improvement. Like we need at least that. If we do that enough, we'll get there.
Yeah. I like to say they're just little millimeter shifts, but imagine if we all did that.
Exactly.
Everyone every day took a little shift to try and understand another perspective, because a lot of the work that I do is in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's just that. You're not going to move a mountain in a day.
Exactly.
You can open up the way you look at something in the next hour.
No. Right.
With people, if you make that commitment. And I sometimes we don't realize how capable we are of doing things, because we're always looking at the greatest scale of it, which is
exactly
chaotic, and it's a riot, and it's a mess. And so when you think about the problem, which is what the media wants to exploit, you'll be less focused on the solution. And I think That's the difference. Is you're solution oriented, and that's what moves the needle. Like
Mhm.
little, little.
Right. I mean, and I'll take that. I'll take that millimeter, that shift. I'll take it. And it's amazing how that little bit of movement, the big change that little bit can make. Because again, if you do that wherever you are, where you are can change dramatically.
Mhm.
And like you said, just imagine if more people did that where they were. All of a sudden, that area can change. That district can change if it's within a school or some type of diversity program or whatever the case is. It's just like you just wish people were just more open to change. And again, less focused on, like you just said, the problem. But that's what sells. The problems sell, and that's what's most appealing and attractive is the problems and it's the
Drama,
drama,
the drama,
unfortunately.
the chaos.
Yeah, chaos that's what we want to talk about. Like, oh man, you see that,
Yeah.
and that we contribute to the problem at that point
You. I mean,
because
that's how you get a stuck mindset instead of a thriving mindset where you're looking
exactly.
at being innovative and being uplifting. You're just like in the muck. But I wanna shift into a couple questions that just help people get to understand your perspective a little bit better. You know, the title of my show is Born Unbreakable because I do believe that we have the grit and tenacity to overcome, much like the adversities you talked about with your brother, where you grew up and the different hardships you've had to face. So I want to ask you, Joel, what makes you unbreakable?
it's funny. We've talked about it um, a ton, but I would say it's my perspective. The way I see things. You try to break me this way, I can see it from another way, and I can adapt. I can adapt to that and be a chameleon. To be honest with you, I'm able to adjust very well to life, and it's that's a part of the adventure, in my opinion. So I would say it would be my perspective. Obviously, there's a ton of things. I can say my faith, my belief. I would say my perspective because you come at me this way. If I view it the wrong way, you got me. But if I view it another way, maybe the proper way,
Yeah,
you can't even hurt me. So
yeah.
I would say my perspective.
That's right. That's right. It's like chess. You have to have different
Exactly.
strategy. You have to have a different
Exactly.
approach to how you look at things. I love that. And I do take your point about emotion to be very valuable because I think oftentimes we act in emotion instead of taking
Yeah.
a step back before we make some of the big decisions. So
Exactly.
that's another really good thing that I like that you said. What's a self-limiting belief that you've had to overcome in your life?
I'm not supposed to. That would be one for sure. Because again, where I come from, it's a whole lot of that. That's again, I don't hate to say it. I was about to say I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it, but it's infused into our school systems. It's just unfortunate. I have to say it. It's things that shows us what we're not supposed to do once we turn 18 or 19 and beyond. Like we're supposed to work at McDonald's. We're supposed to work at the local post office. We're supposed to work, as a janitor at the school once we graduate. Like that's what's supposed to happen, you know. And we're not supposed to be the owner of the McDonald's. We're not supposed to be the superintendent of that school. It's like we're not supposed to be at the top. So that was something I had to overcome. And it was taught to me early in life that I can do whatever I wanted to do. My parents, they're pastors. They told me, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So I knew that scripture when I was born. Like they probably read that to me, in the womb. But so I knew that everything that I was told I wasn't supposed to do or I couldn't do, although I knew the inverse of that I could do, still being a child is hard not to be influenced by people telling you you're not supposed to do that. You're not. Oh, don't worry about going over there because that's not really for you and stuff like that. I had to fight against that. And once I believed and I saw myself actually achieve beyond those negative things, I said, oh, I have my own belief system now. I know what I'm supposed to do what I feel like doing.
Exactly. That's the
Mhm.
supposed to. It's what
Right.
you believe, not what all the noise is telling you.
Exactly.
And that's, yeah, I think that's the journey that all of us are on because their voices will always be there.
Mhm.
Trust that the
Exactly.
voices will always be there
Always,
at every
always.
turn, no matter how, what you've done in your life. There is somebody in your ear telling you otherwise. And you have to listen to yourself before you listen to all that noise. So I,
Exactly.
I agree with that.
Exactly.
Ugh. What about a superpower? What's a superpower that you have that you're really good at that you're proud of?
Man, that's a great question. Superpower that I have. In my opinion, I would say empathy. So empathy, I've actually been empathetic towards those that hates me um, multiple times, and I know that's not normal. But what it does is it keeps me from being stubborn, being empathetic toward other people. It again, I'm bringing this up because these are things that I've been faced with as far as even racism. I've empathized with those who've been racist against me. And I'm like, they just don't get it. You know, I understand that they may have been brought up a certain way. They just may not understand the other side. It's the ignorance that causes the fear that leads to the racism that causes the hatred. So I would say my empathy, even in business, is what helps our business thrive because I understand what people are going through in different demographics. I understand the inner city youth that we may deal with cannot afford our suburban camps. Okay, so what can we do to help them out? I understand that the suburban kids don't have playgrounds to go to every day to play like the inner city kids do. So inner city kids improve faster because they have more people to populate in one playground versus the suburban kid whose playground is one every 4 miles. So I'm like, what can we do for the suburban kid? Okay, let's have some programs out there for them. The inner city kids, let's have so just different things to where I've had to be empathetic toward people that are nothing like me, to be honest, on the surface or in the demographic that they come from. So I would say that's a good superpower for myself.
Yeah. I wish more people had that superpower. That would be nice.
That'd
I
be
think
nice.
world in the way that we approach situations, but I think that's amazing. And with your certainly with your background with psychology and the way that you understand how people think and
Mhm,
behave, it really brings that out in you,
mhm.
the empathy. So I have to ask, what is something that's on your bucket list?
Oh man, that's a great question. Bucket list. Going to Africa. I am one that I'm very curious about life and curious about a lot of things. It's like, if I had a second superpower, it would be my curiosity. But um, I've read so many things. I love history as well, so that's a huge thing for me. And so much of what I read has origins in Africa. And I'm like, I gotta see this stuff for myself. I want to see Jerusalem. I want to see all these places. I want to see Madagascar and just see the rainforest and just the beautiful rainfall waterfalls. I want to see all these things. And so much of it, Egypt. I want to see all this is in I gotta go to Africa in order to see these different things, the pyramids and all these. So that's a bucket list for sure.
Love it. I love it. There's a lot to see. So I'm sure that's going to be a multi trip
Yeah.
probably
Right,
experience
right.
over the next years. So I like that. Joel, if there was one last piece of advice that you could give to anyone listening, what would it be?
It would be what I just alluded to as far as my second superpower. Uh, Stay curious. If you want the best out of yourself, I mean this too. If you want the best out of yourself, you must stay curious because you're going to achieve. You're going to achieve things from your first level of curiosity. You're going to, because you're going to keep learning what you can do, and you're going to reach it. But once you reach it, you don't want to become complacent. You don't want to rest on your laurels. You have to stay curious to say, okay, what else can I do beyond what I just did? Don't, you can celebrate it. Absolutely. Pat yourself on the back, but move on. Even from your own achievement. Let everybody else hoist you on their shoulders and raise you up and laud you and everything. But you have to stay curious about what else you can do, because there's a whole lot of us that's out here living on our past victories, and living that way causes present failure. So you have to make sure you're literally saying, okay, what else can I do now? Okay, now I did that. Okay, now what else can I do? But okay, now if you're done with seeing what else you can do, what else can you do for somebody else? But no matter what, stay curious. That's going to allow for success of success.
I think that's so true. It's funny. It's like watching those movies, and you see people when they're like 20, 30 years later from when they were all the things in high school, but they're
exactly.
still in it. They're like, well, back then.
Right.
It's so funny because I think, I know that's exaggerated. That's the point of movies, it makes us laugh, but I think that's kind of true,
It's
right?
true, right?
Where you were in your golden days, and you ran your fastest, and you were academically admired, and all these things. And
I remember
then
I threw those 7 touchdowns, and, right? It's like just random stories, right?
you're like, oh, when was that? Oh, 20 years ago.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, that's really good. I really like that, the trophy that's kind of dusty back there. That's good.
Right.
But it's true. I think, we our best years are right now.
Yep.
That's always the answer.
Exactly.
Is because now is what we have, right? The past is what we can admire. The future is what we can be hopeful for, but the present is what we can influence this moment.
Exactly.
And if we don't do something about that, then we're not doing a service to anything, to ourselves or for any person. But Joel, where can people find you? Because you are a person of inspiration and motivation. I know people are going to want to see more. Where can they go to do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram often, nowadays. You can find me on there at jgreenplt. That's Jay Green PLT. I love to engage. That's my thing. It's through a DM, on a post. You're gonna see me on there engaging. And I'm also on Facebook. You can find me on there, Joel Green Official. And again, this for me, it really is about influence, impact, where I can help. That's what I'm here for. I'm not one to ignore an opportunity to help somebody out, because I've had so many people help me out to get to where I am, and honestly to get me where I'm going still. But I'm at a place now to where it's life it's not about me anymore, and I've accepted that. And so it's opened me up to so many other people and helping other people. The fact that it's not being done for me. So definitely love to connect with you guys as well.
That's amazing. I love that. And I do believe that when it's not about you, things change dramatically.
For sure.
Joel, thank you so much for sharing. This has been so amazing.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been great.
Welcome to the reflection of episode 128 with Joel Green, my amazing guest. And if you're watching online, I just want to point out the plant that I have. Thank you to my good friend Maxine. This was one of the gifts that she gave for closing on the investment property. So that is another fun business of mine. Stay Dorado. If you are looking for a place to stay in Las Vegas or a place to do an event, hit up your girl. That's a whole nother adventure that I'm embarking upon. But what we're here is to reflect on this interview. And I really want to leave you with this. I appreciate everything that Joel said about perspective and empathy. I really actually think those things go together. And it's evident that he's very good at that. And he's acquired those skills through his experiences and also through business. And I think they go a long way. When you can have empathy for other people, even when they don't understand you, even when their mind is a little bit closed, You're helping them to maybe begin to see another perspective. They may not understand it today. They may not even understand it tomorrow. But what you are doing is planting a seed, and maybe with a little watering, that seed can grow into a perspective that helps them to understand and see the world just a little bit differently. I believe that we're all in a position where we can see the world just a little bit differently. I'll be the first to admit, I know that I see the world in a certain way because of my belief systems and things like that. But it's important because of what I do as a podcast host, as somebody who does coaching and consulting, is to come to conversations with a blank canvas, particularly in a setting where I'm coaching, because it's not about what I think or even what I feel about a situation. It's about what's best for what that person needs, what's going to help them to grow, what's going to help them to achieve what they want to achieve. And with that comes the ability to empathize and rationalize perspectives that sometimes are beyond your own. So to encourage you, as you reflect on this episode with me, what may you have to gut check about your own perspective? Where could you use a little bit of expansion? Think about that as you move throughout your day. How can you show up a little bit differently to open yourself up to a little bit of other ideas despite the discomfort, so that you can expand? I really hope that you got a lot out of today's episode with Joel. Do check out his book. Look at the show notes for all the links where you could reach him, where you can get his wonderful book. I think we're again, like I mentioned, in a time where people are struggling. Once again, his book is called Filtering the Way to Extract Strength from Struggle. I think it's worth your while to be inspired by him. If you haven't already, please subscribe or follow the Born Unbreakable podcast so you don't miss an episode. Share this episode with somebody who may need the inspiration today. Remember that you are your only limit, so take action, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Born Unbreakable podcast. Thanks for being here.